Hello, my name is Ron Riekers, and I wanted to share with you today how I go about developing an image for an etching. Now, an etching is an intaglio process where you take a copper plate and you etch into the copper plate. As you can see, the grooves in this copper plate, and from there you wipe it with ink, put ink on it, then wipe the ink off, and the ink stays in the grooves. And then what you do is you print that on print paper here, and you can see that there's a tremendous amount of detail that comes from an etching. You can see the detailed line work, as well as you can see certain techniques like aqua tinting, where you can create shading within the piece itself. So there's a lot that goes into an etching, and so there requires some forethought when it comes to creating an etching. The series that I'm working on is a series about Japanese gardens. This one is the Golden Pavilion. And Japanese gardens are very magical places. They require that you actually walk through the place and to see the whole garden. You'll never be able to see the whole garden in one spot. And so I wanted to create that type of feeling when it comes to these etchings, that particularly in these future etchings. So you're getting a sense of discovery as you're looking at these. As you can see, I have a lot of photos. I can use these photos to create a motif, and a motif that's going to give you some balance and mystery. So from these photos, I created 4 separate images, and what I decided to do is focus on one of these images for this video to explain what I'm doing, and as far as getting my information to create my etching. And this is the one that I'm going to go with. As you can see, it's using a variety of textures and a variety of images that I got from the photos. It's not directly related to the photos. And if you look closely at this, you'll see that I marked, here's the overall etching plate. I marked it in thirds. So we have thirds that are marked throughout the piece. So I use that to help me to develop the composition. So I don't have anything that's focused right on the center or anything that's going into the corners. What I'm doing is I'm looking at each of these thirds that I create, the rule of thirds, and creating these images. And as you can see, what that does is it creates a really nice balance. What I'm using for this is, I'm just using a regular sketchbook. This one is, I think it's Adler Art Sketchbook. What I like to use is either Dewart pencils. This one is graphite, it's a 2B. I'll use varieties. This one's actually a 5B with an extension. I'll do those drawings. I'll just use this for a blending tool when I blend. I'll use a kneaded eraser to take out some of the and create some of the highlights. Also just a regular eraser. This one's a Stadler eraser that I use. And one of my favorite tools is this eraser here, this electrical eraser. It is a great tool and sort of a must tool when it comes to working with charcoal or graphite, in my opinion. So I established the image that I want to create into an etching. And so what I want to do is I want to focus on the line work. So basically I take bond paper and I put it over the image and I trace the basic image. And now I can go in with a pen and ink and go in and start creating detail marks and getting an idea. These obviously are not the finished product, but it gives me a really good idea of how I want to create texture, how I want to develop line work, and what I need to emphasize and not emphasize. For that, I tend to use just these simple pens. Again, this is a Staedtler pen, and the one I'm using here is a 0.7. There's also a 0.5. This one is a different product pen, but they work really well as well. So a Coptic multi-liner pen. And the paper that I'm using here is light paper, which is your basic bond paper, your layout bond paper that I'm using. This is very good paper for when you want to transfer or you want something that you can kind of see through. As you can see, you can kind of see through this paper, which is going to help me in my next step. So the next stage is to develop a plan for my aqua tinting. Aqua tinting creates a peppered surface. As you can see, it's gradiated surface that I can get various tones on my plate by using the aqua tinting method, darker areas, lighter areas, and other lighter areas. So there's a lot of variety that you can get as far as value on your plate. And it certainly adds to the overall drama of your plate. So what I'll do is I'll just take the pen and ink that I made before, that we talked about, and I'll put it on a light box, and then I'll take some watercolor paper. Now the watercolor paper I'm using is actually the Sketchpad portfolio paper that I got. It was actually given to me as a gift, but it worked really great. I think it's like a cold press. It looks kind of like a cold press. And I can put that over and then trace the pen and ink onto the watercolor paper. And from there, you can see the pencil marks where I had done the tracing. And from there, I can do an ink wash over the watercolor paper here. This gives me the plan of areas that I want dark, so I'll be doing more extensive aqua tinting in those areas, and areas that I want to be light, which I'll do either no aqua tinting or light aqua tinting. So what I use to create this wash is I'll use Sumi ink. I like Sumi ink. It's a calligraphy ink. It's Yasutomo ink here. There's a variety of inks. You can use Indian ink if you like. And the brushes that I like to use are the Chinese brushes, calligraphy brushes. Again, that's not one of the things I spend my time doing, but I do love their brushes. They load up really well with the ink, and they go on very nice. But you can use, you can use regular brushes for this. This is a Winsor Newton brush. And I also like using sable brushes for my larger wash areas. And when I do it, I use round brushes. But you can use flat for those really detailed areas where, it's the only way to get into it is with a flat brush. So I'll use a flat brush. Again, this one happens to be a Winsor Newton brush again. It's a number 14 flat, and this one's a French brush. You can see I really use it a lot. I love these brushes. This little stand is really great too when you're doing your ink wash. And I also like having a thicker area of ink for the darker areas and the wash areas, very watered down ink. And when I'm all done, now I have a ink wash plate or painting here that I can use as a guideline for when I do my aqua tinting. Now the next step is, how do I transfer this image to the plate? Well, what I'll do is, obviously when you make a print, it's going to be opposite when it comes off. So what I do is I just basically turn this over, do my basic outline, and what I'm going to use is I'm going to use transfer paper, white transfer paper, carbon paper that's white. And I'll put that over my plate. Here's my plate. And then I'll lay in my image, and I'll draw that in. And when I'm done, I've got the ghost image on my copper plate. Now, because I've done the line work study, well, first, because I've laid everything out, so everything is compositionally sound, or to my liking, I've done a detail pen and ink, and I've done a ink wash value study. Now I can start working on my plate. And I hope to create a video showing the development of this plate. Okay. So for my process, I feel studio practice is really important in developing whatever image you're going to do, particularly in etching, mostly because it's very hard to correct once you get into your etching. You like to have mistakes, you like to be able to be free form as you're developing it, but for me, when it comes to etchings, I lay these items out, and it helps me, give me a good idea, good practice in regards to what I'm going to do with my etching plate. So I hope this helps you in your endeavors whenever you're doing any artwork. Studio practice is very important. Everyone has their own individual studio practice, but this is the way I do mine. And so goodbye for now. Thank you for watching this video in regards to how I develop my preliminary work for developing the plate itself. My next video is going to be the studio practice for developing the plate. If you like what you've seen, please subscribe to my YouTube channel at Ronald Reekers. I'm also on Instagram at Ron Reekers, and you can go to my website at reekersart.com and subscribe, where you'll get on a mailing list where I will give you updates in regards to events, specials, and my blog post in future videos. So thank you very much.